Stuka Joe here for a mostly podcast-style video. Today we're going to talk about sequence of play cards. As you know, there are many kinds of war games. Some are simple, some more complex, and some have sequences of play that you can commit to memory, like the old Avalon Hill Africa core game. German movement phase, followed by German combat phase, followed by Allied movement phase, and you finish the turn with the Allied combat phase. However, many of the games that are published these days have turns with multiple phases and steps within the phases. And solitaire games especially are full of phases and steps. And this is so to accommodate the game's artificial intelligence that takes charge of the enemy. And sometimes there's so many phases and steps that it is practically impossible to commit them to memory. Take, for example, John Butterfield's RAF, which is one of the most popular solitaire war games. In each turn of the Lion version, that's the one where you command the RAF, there are 35 phases and segments. Now granted, the game does include a letter-sized player aid with the phases mentioned by title and its rule number. But if the title doesn't ring a bell when you read it, it's time for a trip to the rulebook. You know that learning to play war games correctly is important. And the first time that we play a game, we are bound to make mistakes. And normally, the learning process, we do it on our own. There's no one else there to call our attention when we screw up the rules. Games, they come with player aids, and they usually consist of a cardstock sheet that measures 8.5 by 11 inches, and many times printed on both sides. So when you consult the player aid, your eyes have to search for what you are precisely looking for, which is buried in a sea of information that you don't need at that precise time. When looking up what phase is next and what to do in a game that has more than 20 phases, well, you will probably be looking at the player aid or rulebook around 20 times. So this doesn't sound like a lot of fun, because the more you have to divert your attention from the board and look up information in player aids and rules, the less enjoyable the game is. And playing a war game for the first time can be anything from a wonderful to a harrowing experience. We as wargamers know that to appreciate a game fully, it takes repeated play. So the game won't usually reveal itself the first time you play it. However, in wargaming, as in real life, first impressions are important. And if the first impression you receive of a war game when you play it is that you spent most of the time looking up rules than playing, you will associate all this unpleasantness with the game, and that will probably decrease its chances that you want to play the game again. However, if you were able to play the game in a mostly correct fashion the first time you played it, and without having to dive into the rules or the player aids repeatedly, it is more likely that you will start to appreciate some of the game's nuances, and the game will start revealing itself to you, showing you what it can do. Now, if only games would have player aids that could easily and quickly guide us through each of the game's multitude of phases and steps, telling us what happens in each phase or step, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Enter the sequence of play cards. Why cards about a game's sequence of play? The answer is pretty obvious. Almost all war games have a sequence of play, that is, a strict order of procedures that have to be followed each turn, and these procedures are mostly identical every turn. That's why the sequence of play is usually referred to as the heart of the game. And that's why wargamers, when taking up a game's rulebook for the first time, usually look up the sequence of play to get an idea of how the game plays. And what are exactly the sequence of play cards? These are poker-sized cards, that is 2.5 by 3.5 inches, arranged in a deck where each card contains relevant information as to a particular phase or step. of the sequence of play. And the size of the cards here is important because the player's attention will be drawn to a small area, the area which is the size of a poker card, as opposed to a multiple-page rulebook or a letter-sized back-printed player aid. The small area of the card makes finding the relevant information much more easier and quicker. And the cards are arranged in order, with the card corresponding to the first phase or step of the turn as the topmost in the pile. You simply flip the top card face up and follow its instructions. And when you finish following the instructions on the first card, you flip the next card and you do the same thing. And once the last card in the deck is flipped, you simply turn the whole deck face down and you're ready to begin a next turn. The cards are structured in bullet form to be read from top to bottom, and the player simply follows the instructions. I like to use highlighted text for conditional instructions, also known as if-then statements. These are instructions that you follow only if a specific condition applies. In other words, if the highlighted premise applies, keep reading and follow the instructions on that bullet. Otherwise, if it doesn't apply, skip the bullet and go to the next one. The cards can also have a picture, and the purpose of the picture is not merely decorative. The picture should be elusive to the card's phase or segment. So for example, if you have a card with the title Load Torpedo segment, a picture of sailors handling a torpedo is perfect. And the purpose of the picture is to serve as a mnemonic device. And with repeated play using the cards, the sight of the picture alone, in many instances, will remind the player of the card's text, and therefore the player won't even have to read the text. I have made sequence of play cards for various games such as RAF, Fortress Europa, Red vs. Reverse, Zeppelin Raider, Crete 1941, and others, and most recently for Waterloo Campaign 1815, a game designed by Mark Herman and published in C3I magazine. The main reason for this video, however, is to inform that I have uploaded to BGG's file page for Waterloo Campaign 1815 a PowerPoint file that contains the sequence of play cards for that game, but also a template that you can use to make your own sequence of play cards. The link to the file is in the description below. So let's take a look now at the file, and here's where the podcast phase of this video ends. Okay, here we are with the PowerPoint template, and you can see that it is part of the file that I included in BGG for Waterloo Campaign 1815. Here we have the first page of the PowerPoint presentation of the cards, and you see that the first 4 pages consist of the Waterloo Campaign 1815 sequence of play cards. Of course, this is in PowerPoint form. You can modify them if you want to practice, and the 5th page has the instructions of how to fill in the information for the blank cards that you will see in the template. So let's go to the template. Here we have sheet 1, which is the front side, and you see that there is 2 lines here at the top of each card where you can place the title of the segment and any other information. Sometimes the titles are pretty long, so you will need 2 lines. And then you have this number here in the left-hand corner of the card, which is the number in which, the order in which you place these cards from top to bottom. So you just fill out the information with the titles of the cards, and then the cards have also some text here. I included some bullets and placed the text of the steps of each phase or segment in bullet form, and there's space to put an illustration. You can just drag the text box down and place an illustration if you want to do that, a picture, and just fill out the information for all the cards. Then these are the front cards. We go to the next page, which is the backs of the cards. This area in white is left blank intentionally. Just obtain a picture of the game and make it fit here in the space of one of the cards, and then just copy and paste in the rest of the spaces. And here you just write down the name of the game, and you have that card number 1 is not on the left side, is on the right side here, because this will be printed on both sides with the flip page on the short side, which will be this side here. So you go from right to left, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. And I also included an extra sheet, so you can make up to 16 cards with the PowerPoint template here. But if you need to make more cards, it's very simple. You just go to the thumbnail here at the left, and you just click copy and paste, and you can make another sheet, as many sheets as you need. So I recommend also that you, after you fill out the information, you print the sheets in cardstock and print it at actual size. Do not use the fit to page box, and print on both sides with the setting set on flip pages on short side. I recommend that you laminate these cards. These cards are not meant to be shuffled, but they'll last longer if you laminate them. And after you laminate them, then cut the cards out using the dashed lines on their fronts as a guide. I use scissors to cut the cards out. And then after I cut them out, I use a corner cutter. And I use the 5mm Oregon's lamination corner cutter. So these are the cards, sequence of play cards for Waterloo Campaign 1815, and the template, which you can use to make your own cards. And I have included the link at BGG where this file is in the description below. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know here or at BGG. And this is Stuka Joe, signing off for now. Thanks for watching.